When the United States dropped an atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Nagasaki, and the United States and the Soviet Union had emerged from the war as the two dominant superpowers were entering into the prolonged nuclear armed standoff known as the Cold War. So we are going to see the art movement about that era. So can you guess where is the picture? Can you guess the location of this picture?
New York.
Yes, yes. So the center of artistic energy had shifted. The several developments had paved the ways for this following of advanced art in the United States of America. So one was the founding of the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, in the New York City in 1929. So this is the timeline. The modern art movements arose in Europe since foundation of Louvre Museum, like I said. And however, after the foundation of Museum of Modern Art here in New York City, the art trends moved from Europe to America. So the painters associated with the first major post-war art movement are commonly referred to as the New York School during World War II. And there are diverse art styles emerged in 60s and 70s like this. Today, we are going to see the abstract expressionist of the New York School and the first art movement, pop art, in 60s and 70s. So let's see the New York School first. The New York School was a convenient label under which to lump together a group of painters also known as the abstract expressionists. Abstract expressionists were Jackson Pollock and Willem de Kooning. So let's see these two artists. And actually we saw that Jackson Pollock before, splashing the action painting artist. So Paul Jackson Pollock was an American painter and a major figure in the abstract expressionist movement. He was widely noticed for his technique for pouring or splashing liquid household paint onto a horizontal surface, enabling him to view and paint his canvases from all angles. So this is Jackson Pollock's work. So he had perfected his drip technique named action painting. So Pollock placed the unstretched canvas on the floor and painted on it indirectly by casting paint from a brush in controlled gestures or by dripping paint from a star stick. So that the whole process of the painting is called the action painting. So layer after layer, color after color, the painting grew into an overall tangle of graceful arches, dripped lines, spatters, and pools of colors. And let's see the next expressionist artist. Abstract expressionist artist, Willem de Kooning. Willem de Kooning was a Dutch-American abstract expressionist artist. The years after World War II, de Kooning painted in a style that came to be referred to as abstract expressionism or action painting, and was part of a group of artists that came to be known as the New York School. So this is de Kooning's work. looks very aggressive nude painting. So de Kooning's well-known women's series began in 1950 and culminating in Woman's Six, this one, owes much to Pablo Picasso, and not least in the aggressive and penetrative breaking apart of the figure and the spaces around it. The woman painting is considered as a significant work of art for the museum through its historical context about the post-World War II history and American feminist movement. So he once believed that the history of female representations as the idol, the Venus, and the nude. So now we're going to move on to the 60s and 70s art movements now. So this is composer John Cage, and he said like the music and art should be an affirmation of life, not an attempt to bring order out of chaos, nor to suggest improvements in creation, but simply a way of waking up to the very life we are living. So let's see how the art is going to be related to the life. So like the Dadaist of the 40 years earlier, we learned Dadaism in the last week. So young artists began mixing art back up with life as they found it, sometimes literally and often humorously. So critics called the trend Neo-Dada, means new Dada. So during the 60s and 70s, the directions that had been set out in the previous decade were continued, questioned, and complicated by new trends. So we're going to see the first art movement in 60s and 70s. This is pop art. So pop for popular. The artist of pop found the gold mine of visual material in the mundane, mass-produced objects and images of America's popular culture, such as comic books, advertising, billboards, and packaging, and the ever-expanding world of home appliances and other commodities, and the photographic images from cinema, television, and newspapers. So like the Neo-Dada, pop drew art closer to life, but life as it had already been transformed into images by advertising and the media. So we are going to see 3 pop artists today. This is first pop artist, Andy Warhol. So probably most of you know this artist. So Andy Warhol was born in Pittsburgh to working class immigrant parents. Warhol earned a degree in design at Carnegie Institute of Technology in 1949. And he was an American artist, director, and producer who was a leading figure in the visual art movement known as pop art. So this is his early work, the illustration works. So his goal was to become a commercial artist, and within a year of arriving in New York City, he had top assignments from Glamour magazine, Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, Martini and Rosie, Columbia Records, and many others. So his whimsical line drawings of cats, butterflies, and specifically women's shoes made him one of the most sought and highly paid illustrators in the city. So after working as an illustrator for only a few years, Warhol reinvented himself as a fine artist. He based his painting on imagery he found in the American mass media, such as news photos, celebrity headshots, film stills, comics, logos, and advertisement. To convert his source images into paintings, Warhol made them into photo silk screens or screen printing. We learned it before, right? On the canvas. So smudges, misalignments, and the inconsistencies were accepted, giving the paintings a handmade appearance despite his use of a commercial process. So this is his working studio. He's calling this, he called this studio as the factory because he's reproducing the same work of art, by using this printing technique, screen printing. So let me share a video to see his work process. So see, he just printed his the image, to celebrate his images on the canvas. Okay. So like this is another celebrities printing with the by using the same technique. The secret screen works just we just saw through the video. So sometimes the paintings include a single image, as in Marilyn Monroe, and then like this Campbell's Soup series. So these become larger than life, the iconic portraits, while those printed in Greece suggest the way that repetition can simultaneously embed an image in one's memory and that in its effect. So these brash innovative works are considered icon of pop art, a movement that both critiqued and celebrated post-war American consumer culture. So by the end of the decade, Warhol had become a celebrity in his own right, equally famous for his platinum wig and the star-studded parties he threw at his studio, the factory. So as he was for his paintings, drawings, sculpture, and film. So this is one of the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. So you can see the real work of art in the museum. In 1968, Warhol was shot and nearly killed by the actress Belari Solanis, who had a big part of one of his films. Post-shooting, his work became both more commercial and more introspective. He hired himself out as a portraitist, making flattering images of the rich and famous, but he also made haunting self-portraits that hinted at his purported fear of death. Although he was only 58 years old when he died, he left an immense body of work that seems increasingly relevant today as the distinctions among art, entertainment, information, and spectacle continue to erode. So let's move on to the next artist, the pop artist, Roy Lichtenstein. So Roy Lichtenstein was born on October 27, 1923 in New York City. His father was a successful real estate broker, and his mother was a homemaker, and she had trained as a pianist. And she exposed Roy and his sister Renee to museums, concerts, and other aspects of New York culture. Roy showed artist and musical ability early on. He drew, painted, and sculpted as a teenager, and spent many hours in the American Museum of Natural History and the Museum of Modern Art. This is his work. Looks like a part of cartoon, right? So his work is inspired by cartoon, which is one of the America's popular culture. And Roy Lichtenstein used stencils, thick black outlines, and primary colors to elevate both commercial images and the commercial printing process into art. He used the familiar imagery to create art that could be enjoyed by the masses after the serious and complicated abstract expressionist movement from the New York School. And he said like this: pop art looks out into the world. It doesn't look like a painting of something. It looks like the thing itself. So let me share a video about his working process.
Diagram is maybe a good word for the way I represent other artists. That may be true of cartooning, that it tends to be a diagram of a person. It seems to depict by outlining and delineating in a simple way what a subject is.
So now, since the scale, the size of the his work, so it's very, we are so overwhelmed of the the image, even though he is depicting the cartoonish image.
The studio was his favorite place. It was the idea that he could actually come down and play. Sometimes he just liked to come down and even clean his paintbrushes and look around at the work he was doing, at that time. Roy kept a pretty regular schedule. I mean, he was usually in the studio by 10, had the same thing for breakfast every single morning. broke for lunch, came back and worked.
It wasn't like I have to go to work today. God, I have to paint today. Nothing. It was his joy. It was his pleasure. It was everything. Sometimes I'd go to the studio in Southampton and he'd be alone in the studio. I'd sit in the little chair and watch him work. And I thought I'd be distracting him. No, I'd watch him work and he was just focused. Nothing to distract him.
He never really dreamed that he would be able to support himself through just painting. That was something that made him truly happy.
So the question of the hour is, how are you going to work in Rome?
I'm going to do some drawing and thinking and mostly eating, I think.
He was exactly the first day I met him to the day I never saw him again the same way. Easygoing, charming. He wasn't judgmental.
I was working at the Bianchini Gallery in New York, and we did an exhibition called The Great American Supermarket, and thought, wouldn't it be great if instead of a regular poster, we could get Roy Lichtenstein and Andy Warhol to put an image on a shopping bag. They both agreed. And I met Roy in 1964 when he came in to sign the shopping bags.
Well, it was 64, so he was pretty well known. He was an internationally known artist. There was still great controversy. It was in the air. Is pop art serious? Is it this? Is it art? All that stuff was still up there. A lot of people were upset about it. You know, the abstract expressionists must have felt pretty upset because they saw their whole anguished world vanish in this kind of ironic and witty and beautifully done work.
What I did in these early paintings was frightening to me, really. And it seemed to go counter to a sense of taste I had developed along with, I would hope, a sense of art. Except I knew it had meaning, and I knew very shortly that it had more meaning than the things I had done before. But because it was so different, it was really frightening.
He was not a fan of comics. It was the nature of the cartoon. It just seemed as far away from an artistic image as you can get, and to try to transform that into a formal painting really appealed to him. He also found it impossible to go back to doing what he had been doing. I must say, he never quite managed to get the tormented look in those paintings. He wasn't the tortured artist. He used to joke and say he was going to take curmudgeon lessons. When Roy was at Ohio State, he had an art professor, Hoyt Sherman, who was a huge influence on him. Talked all about ways of seeing and perception. He had methods of teaching where he flashed slides in a dark room really quickly and had people sketch them so that they could get kind of wholeness or gestalt of the work. That really had a major impact on Roy.
When I turn the work upside down, it's to obliterate the subject or to resense it. You can think of it more as pure mark than you can subject. You can see it clearly if you look at it through a mirror because it reverses everything. And anything you don't want is sort of doubly off because it's the other way around. It's almost the same as coming back 2 weeks later or something, looking at it, and you see what's off then. Art's about something that's entirely different from what my original sources were. And I like the contradiction. I think people mistake the character of line for the character of art. But it's really the position of the line that's important, or the position of anything, any contrast, not the character of it.
Anything that was kind of high-flung always amused him, and he himself had just kind of natural humility, really.
I think the pictures, and he sells them. How's that? What could be better? It's pretty simple. Leo.
Well, I'll try to be a little bit more complicated, but not too much.
Yeah.
And I would say that there are several kinds of relationships that can exist between the dealer and the painter.
All right, so let me stop the video right here. So this is Roy Lichtenstein's work. So you can now continue to watch the video after the meeting. It's in the meeting. It's in the Moodle room. So now let's move on to the next pop artist, the last one, Jeff Koons. Jeff Koons is an American artist, recognized for his work dealing with popular culture and his sculptures depicting everyday objects, including balloon animals like this, produced in stainless steel with mirror finish surfaces. He lives and works in both New York City and his hometown of York, Pennsylvania. Jeff Koons, he is one of the world's most expensive living artists, and he's still alive. And he's widely known for his balloon animal sculpture, began his Bronze Hulk Elvis series more than a decade ago. So this is the one of his famous work, balloon dog sculpture. The works from the ongoing series Hulk Elvis range from precision machined bronze sculptures, and it inspired by inflatable of the popular comic book hero and extruded in the 3 dimensions. So for Koons, the character represents not only Western comic book culture, but Eastern guardian god as well. So he said like this: they're there as protectors, but at the same time, they can become very, very violent. The Hulks are like that. So they're really high testosterone, the high testosterone symbols. So the Koons designed also the Lady Gaga's Art Pop album cover and exhibited artwork at the Gaga's art rave in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. So I'm gonna share one last video to see, to watch his interview about his work of art. Helps you understand his work of art.
I really did not know fine art as a child. I was learning aesthetics through my father. My father was an interior decorator, but I wasn't visiting art museums. And you have to learn how to trust in yourself. And when you trust in yourself and you follow your interest, that's really where you find art. If I think about striving for perfection in my work, I think right away of my father. Within our family, we always joke about when my dad would put up our Christmas tree, and we would always have hundreds of balls that would go on the tree, and he would each year dust all of them to be sure that they were really perfect, no fingerprints on that. And when I would work with an object, I would want every detail, every perfection or imperfection of the object. So when somebody would view it, that they could maintain this kind of suspension of disbelief and go along with this abstraction for as long as possible. So there's an aspect of control of vision to be able to achieve something I picked up from my father. When I moved to New York, I really wanted to move into the objective. I did not want to paint what I dreamt the night before. I wanted to be involved with a more universal vocabulary. So I just started to work with ready-made objects. So there was a very kind of strong, kind of pop, Duchampian type of aspect to my work. And what I really found is that everything's a full circle. And it's like the yin and the yang. And the idea of the subjective to the objective, it's not a line, it's not a linear line that you have the subjective here and the objective here, but it's circular. I remember my art history teacher, the first time ever seeing Manet's Olympia, he put it up on the screen. He started to speak about this work and about the different symbols and different meanings. And I started to realize that this activity of art connects you to all the human disciplines. And I can be having a dialogue about sociology and philosophy and physics. I mean, all realm of the human disciplines. I just felt potential that I had an activity to be involved with that could connect me with other people. When I think, what an artist does, it's about making gesture. And a lot of people right away think about throwing paint or, making a physical gesture. But, you can make a philosophical gesture. And a lot of times people feel very inferior to art. They feel intimidated by it. But the art really happens inside you.
All right, so that was the Japanese work. Okay, so let's talk about the discussion. Today's discussion related to this chapter we just learned. So we just saw, pop art, right? Learned the Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, and Jeff Koons. So they use the America's popular culture for their work of art. So this is today's discussion topic. Please discuss America's or your home country's popular culture and tell us your favorite popular culture with a brief reason. So this is going to be really simple and easy, right?